right, Canadian artists, they're always among you. And this is, like, again, this is a story about a specific moment in time when Toronto was everything. But we had much music. You kids today, you don't remember. We had much music. We had a music scene. We had a world that was open to, we had a thriving graphic novel scene, which you helped define, Chester. And you rebuilt it in modern Toronto, which I find absolutely fascinating, because the city that we have now doesn't look like the city we had then. So I want to start by just asking, how on a film that is clearly a very small production, how do you rebuild the world that we kind of vaguely remember now through, you know, TV clips and memory? You were there, I was there, you were mostly more there than I was. But, you know, where did that start, and how did you get it to look like the graphic novel, even though it's...
Well, you just go shoot a movie in your home where the real life events occurred. And there's like, yeah, it just made sense. We were on a small budget, and it was like, hey, okay, this place, you know, it's art directed quite well, and your room is still there, and we'll just do it here. And it really took a village to make this movie. Literally the village of Kensington Market. And I called in so many friends. I called up Daniel Vila, who ran Double Land. He's got a fantastic space, and I'm like, okay, Daniel, can we shoot? Yes, of course. Art department brought in a big round bed, purple sheet. Brilliant. Great. And then my friends Daniel Lee and Lucas Chung, they have a great space on Spadina. And whenever I went over to their place, I was like, this is like the brothel that I'm imagining Anna and Amanda, you know, work at. And they're like, you know, I think this was a brothel, because people knock on the door and say, hey, is Lips still working there? So I was like, yes, okay, get it. And so it really, and then I need a TV studio. Those are expensive. Moses Neimer, hi Moses. He hired me at Much Music, and he let us shoot on the weekend at his Zoomer Hall. And we transformed that. So it was like, you know, walking around and seeing what the tender and precious spaces that are left in our city, they are there. And so it was Sneaky D's. So just one of those places.
Yeah. And not only are you rebuilding a certain point in time, you're literally recreating your lives. You are rebuilding the lives you lived, the moments you had, and directing a version of yourself and a version of Chester in a story that you know, the two of you know better than literally anyone else. So first of all, Chester, thank you for trusting someone else to tell that story.
I wouldn't have trusted anyone else, and she vindicated my trust. Like I love what she did with the story.
That means a whole lot. Like that's almost the most important thing. When your book came out, it was just like, oh yes, it just spoke to me about so many things, not only sex worker rights, but you know, there's this same trajectory for queer liberation and women's rights, POC rights, human rights. And so I really wanted to be able to, you know, uphold your vision. And it was tough. It took years. It took a long time. And it wasn't until I realized that I had to, like, you know, add more, kind of like describe what was happening in our lives together as he was journeying in his solo flight in his graphic novel.
Well, and that's what I mean. You don't let Sunny off the hook either. Like, this is an interrogation of both of their characters.
That's truly. Yeah, people wonder if it's going to be like so hard to go back to revisit some of those difficult times, because life is hard, and there's some tough material there, difficult questions. But I think I'm very, very lucky to love my younger self. There's something about youth or openness. I see it in photographs too, in my other friends' photographs. When I see there's an openness and a willing to make mistakes, and you're not even thinking it's just like entertain possibility. And I go, you kind of fucked up, kid, but you're all right. You're all right. And so we were kind of both doing stuff, and we continue to. So I think I have that connection and just love our relationship. And then, so it was quite a pleasure to go back to those times.
Oh, that's lovely. And then I'm going to go down the line and ask the people who are playing the versions of you that you are directing in the story that recreates the lives that you had. At what point does Chester stop being the person next to you and become someone you can play on screen? Like, where was the line, or was there even a line?
Yeah, it didn't feel like there was much of a line. Like, sort of like reading the book, it just felt like the authenticity and the frankness was so clear voiced that it just felt like very resonant with me, and so it didn't feel hard at all to kind of step into that. And if I ever had any questions, we were like living and breathing in the room and space that happened. So I felt very like I felt like the bases were very well covered.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
There were times where we needed a prop.
And we were like, oh, well, just here's this book he painted, right on the shelf here.
Yeah. Do you want it?
Yeah, please.
For me, I recognized myself in Sunny / Sook-Yin as an Asian person who is more, who is more into the alternative scene and culture. And Sook-Yin sent me a lot of archival material from her Much Music days, so that was really nice to dig into, to get into character. And for the private Sook-Yin at home, we spent a lot of time together connecting and sharing stories, and that was really nice to get in touch with. And her name is Sunny, so I knew that it was going to be not a mimicry of who I am, but it was, I gave Emily as much material as I could. Essays also, I've done a lot of autobiographical work, and then also knew that you would be bringing Emily to the role, so that's why she's Sunny, and I kind of think it helped have some distance as well.
And Andrea, too, did you?
I had the great privilege of playing somebody that nobody's ever met.
Yeah, which is fascinating.
Except
right?
Chester.
Other people have met her too.
Her identity is secret. Even Sook-Yin has never really...
Never met her.
Yeah.
You know,
So Denise is a mystery, which meant that I could bring whatever I wanted to the character, which happened to be warmth and humanity to this wonderful sex worker.
Yeah, it's a dimension you don't get to see in any other. I mean, when you, this is hard to explain, but the Law and Order version of the sex worker is the one that everybody has in mind when you say sex worker, right? Like the person who says, oh, I don't know, he was a weird John and now he's dead. Like, they don't get a second scene. They're just the interview. And we don't have films about them that aren't documentaries. We don't have films about them that let them be fans of artists, right? Like that moment where they connect over the thing they both love that isn't, it dimensionalizes her in one way, but then you, and this, I think it's the script that keeps us looking for the next thing, and your performance gives her that. Yeah, you are playing someone with secrets, but it's not that you're keeping secrets from the camera. She exists, and she's a whole person as much as anybody else is, which, again, not something we see in a lot of movies, and that's, thank you for that. That's something new.
We're just scratching the surface here. It's a very vast experience, and really we're following Chester's memoir. So it's very specific, and really the part of the bold is that you told your story. And as similarly as sex workers in cinema are unidimensional, oftentimes unidimensional, or a tragic ending or moralizing and so forth, Johns are depicted very, very terribly, just like awful people or jokes.
Serial killers are.
Serial killers. Yeah, that's the whole same with if you're gay in a movie, it's often a serial killer. So it's like, I love that you wrote that perspective, because that's one that we just never hear, and there's so many more.
And I'm sure the audience is going to have questions of their own, so